Okay, so this commander deck is a little weird, but with the right strategy, it might be stronger than we think. Ria Ivor, Bane of Bladehold is a 3/4 legendary Phyrexian knight with Battlecry for 2 white/black. Battlecry says whenever this creature attacks, each other attacking creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. At the beginning of combat on your turn, the next time target creature would deal combat damage to one or more players this combat, prevent that damage. If damage is prevented this way, create that many 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature tokens with Toxic 1, and this creature can't block. This can make you tokens the same turn it comes out, provided you can deal combat damage. And when Ria attacks, it'll make whatever creature that makes tokens bigger, along with whatever tokens you made in the previous turn. There are a few ways we can focus this deck, but one thing is going to be the same. You want big, evasive creatures dealing damage to your opponents to make as many tokens as possible. Incisor Glider is a 1/3 with Flying and Corrupted that says when it attacks, if an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Corrupted fits here since our mites have Toxic, but the small buff can add up to a lot when you have a lot of creatures on the board. Swooping Lookout has Flying and Vigilance, and there are plenty of other 1 and 2 drop flyers that we can put in this slot, or these slots. Heavenly Culin is a flying 2/2 and Pegasus Courser is a flying 1/3. They both say that when they attack, another target attacking creature gains flying until end of turn. Sultari Champion is a 2/2 with Shadow, which means it can only block or be blocked by creatures with Shadow, and whenever it attacks, other creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. And then of course there are equipment pieces like Cloak of the Bat or Fleet Feather Sandals that'll give a creature flying and haste. Then of course there's Skrelv Defector Might. It can make sure the important creature gets through for damage, or it can hang back and protect Ria. It'll give the creature Toxic 1, so later on it'll take less mites to poison an opponent out of the game. Add in some Double Strike to double the amount of tokens made in a combat and things can get out of hand pretty quickly. Aven Sunstriker has Flying and Double Strike, so if you can buff this one, you're going to get a crazy amount of tokens. Siege Striker is a cool option here. It's a 1/1 with Double Strike for 2 and a white that says when it attacks you may tap any number of untapped creatures you control. It gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each creature tapped this way. So if there are some creatures you don't want to swing with, you can tap them to make Siege Striker bigger and get more tokens as a result. Next, we want to make them bigger. But speaking about making things bigger, if you like what you see so far and you haven't subbed to the channel yet, why don't you hit that button and change your life forever? Not really, but it'll help the channel grow and you'll be notified whenever I drop a new video, and that might make your day better. Thanks. Cranioplating will accomplish this task since your mites are artifacts, and this gives the equipped creature +1/+0 for each artifact you control. Mace of the Valiant, though, is an equipment for 2 and a white with an equip cost of 3. It says equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each charge counter on Mace of the Valiant and has Vigilance. Then, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a charge counter on Mace of the Valiant. There's a scary interaction here if you equip this on one of your Double Strike creatures, though. The creature will deal damage on the first strike, making tokens enter the battlefield, putting counters on the mace, and then on the second swing, the creature will make even more tokens, making the mace bonus even bigger. It would only take 2 combats to make a stupid number of tokens and a very scary attacker, especially since the mace will hit the field and get counters from combat even if you can't equip it to anything that same turn. Horn of Valhalla is similar, but it simply counts the number of creatures you control, and its adventure side will let you pay X and 2 white to create X/1/1 soldiers. Brina the Demagogue has Flying, but when a creature attacks one of your opponents with more life than the others, that player draws a card and you put 2 1/1 counters on a creature you control. This will make the token generator bigger and get you some card draw. Now that we're reliably making tokens, we need to decide what to do with them. If you just want to swing with the mites and deal toxic damage to your opponents, behind the scenes will make it very difficult for your opponents to block the mites. It's an enchantment for 2 and a black that gives your creatures Skulk, which means your creatures can't be blocked by creatures with greater power, so your mites can only be blocked by 1 or 0 power creatures. Then, after blockers are declared, if you have extra mana, you can pump them for 5 mana to deal more damage. Company Commander will create 1/1 soldiers equal to the number of opponents you have, but when it attacks, all creatures you control gain Death Touch until end of turn, making them very annoying to block. Commissar Severina Rain says when it attacks, each opponent loses X life, where X is the number of other attacking creatures. You can also pay 2 and sack another creature to gain 2 life and draw a card. If you don't want to attack, with the number of tokens you'll be making, we can throw in an Aristocrats package with your favorite sack outlets, pingers, and payoffs. But since the mites are artifacts, you can include Marionette Master as a pinger to deal massive amounts of damage, especially if you put a Mace of the Valiant with several charge counters onto it. Imagine sacking a single mite to make an opponent lose 10 life. Nadir's Nightblade is fine here too, since you'll be making a ton of tokens, but Nadir, Agent of the Dusk Knell, can create some absurd value in an Aristocrat's engine. It's a 3/3 legendary elf warrior for 5 and a black that says, whenever a token you control leaves the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on Nadir, and when Nadir leaves the battlefield, create a number of 1/1 green elf warrior creature tokens equal to its power. Now, while 6 mana sounds like a lot for this effect, notice that it's a leaves the battlefield effect. You get the tokens if this dies, if it's exiled, or if it's bounced. So once you sack your mites, making Nadir huge, you can sack Nadir to get more tokens to sack and probably win if the situation is right. If you use an effect like Kaya's Ghost Form to return it to the field, you can do this once more and you could potentially win the game from that if it's big enough. I personally think that Aristocrats will be the easiest way to play this deck, but if you wanted to go into it a different way, you could roll into the ETB of the creatures and generate life and win with more difficult win cons. A Johnny's Welcome, Anointer Priest, Soul's Attendant, Soul Warden, Impassioned Orator, and Suture Priest will all gain you life when creatures enter the battlefield. Then you can use Aetherflux Reservoir, Felidar Sovereign, or Test of Endurance to win, provided you can find them and they stick around long enough to win. Considering how fast tokens can be made, Halo Fountain might be a good include here as well. Swing with enough creatures, making sure that they live, and then untap them all with Halo Fountain to win. So, once you pick your strategy from these, the only thing left is to fill the holes in your deck with card draw and interaction to protect your board from threats and eliminate your opponent's threats as well. There are quite a few options for white and black in these slots, and they're all generally the same depending on what strategy you pick. And that's about it for this EDH deck concept for Ria Ivor, Bane of Bladehold. Let me know what you think of the video and how you decided to build it in the comments below. I actually bought a copy of her after making this video, and once I put it together, I can share a full deck tech if you like. Just let me know. But in the meantime, like the video if you liked the video, dislike it if you disliked it, and until next time, I'm Space Coconut, and you're welcome.